All right, Wednesday, January 8th, we are starting off the second week of the Pantry Challenge, the Three Rivers Challenge. And I am so excited to make tonight's meal. We are going to be having miso soup with pork fried rice. I'm not really following a specific recipe. I'm just kind of like throwing things together, which is what I like to do. But I have no affiliation with this book, but I need to share it because it has been so transformative in our kitchen. I love Asian cooking, and a majority of Asian cooking with a lot of those traditional recipes, especially like the restaurants and whatnot, it's a lot of foods that have undesirable ingredients. And so Sophia, with a foreword by Sally Fallon Morell from Weston A. Price, I don't want to say her name wrong, so I'm just saying Sophia. She wrote The Nourishing Asian Kitchen. It came out in 2024, and it's nutrient-dense recipes for health and healing. And it's a lot of your favorite Asian recipes. So I was looking through this just to make sure I had the right spices that I wanted to incorporate into this dish. I have a pound of ground pork that is raw. We're gonna put that in a bowl, and I'm gonna add in some ground clove, ground cardamom, ground star anise, ground fennel, Saigon cinnamon, and ground turmeric. And we're gonna like spice up that pork with some of those Asian spices. I also have 2 quarts of bone broth that I just pulled from the pantry. Now, this is the regular kind of chicken bone broth that I make in my Instant Pot or on the stovetop, and then I pressure can it. But for these batches, I actually made it with that's how you say it, but phonetically looking faux spices. I have 2 quarts of this pulled out because I'm actually gonna cook the rice in the pho stock, and I'm gonna use the other quart for our miso soup with miso and some kombu seaweed, and I'm hoping this comes together and is wonderfully delicious. But we're gonna start with mixing up our pork with the spices and getting the rice cooked. All right, so I have some of my spices already ground and others that are in the whole form, and I need to actually grind them with my coffee grinder. Coffee grinder, yeah. So this is star anise. I've got also some toasted sesame oil, the Saigon cinnamon, and the turmeric. Right now I'm gonna add that, and then we'll go grind the fennel seeds, the black cardamom seeds, and clove. I'm not measuring, I'm just kind of throwing in. I would say, if I had to guess, maybe about 1/4 teaspoon of each. This is the turmeric, that was the ground star anise. This is the Saigon cinnamon. Okay, so I've got my coffee grinder. Now I only use this for spices, so if you have one that you would prefer to not use for spices, then get a new one. So this is fennel seed, cloves, and this is the whole black cardamom pods. They're like little black brownish seeds. And sometimes I find that it doesn't actually grind into the powder I need it to. So I use like a little strainer and strain it kind of into the bowl. Little Redmond real salt. Just a tad of the toasted sesame oil. Okay, I'm gonna let that sit while I try to go get the miso soup going, and just let these flavors come together. Okay, I'm turning on my cast iron skillet as well as this back saucepan, I'm gonna add in my 2nd quart of pho stock into the back saucepan. This is gonna be our miso soup. I've got some pre-chopped ginger and garlic in here. In olive oil, I'm gonna add some here, as well as some back here. So for the miso soup, it's very simple, right? Just take a really good hearty bone broth, add some of the garlic and ginger. Now I could have sauteed that first and then added the stock, but I didn't think about it. But then I'm gonna add in some of our miso. I have a very mellow white miso. I've had this in a refrigerator for a very long time. Best by May 7th of 2021. This is like 5 years old probably, but I think I still can use it. Yeah, I think it's still fine. I mean, miso is fermented soybean paste, so it's just super fermented. I actually also have some kombu. I realize this is not stuff you might have in your pantry. I actually did have it in my pantry. I bought this probably a year ago. It is a type of seaweed and it is really rich in flavor, nutrients, and minerals, right? And so our miso is going to have probably maybe a little bit of onion. I've got some freeze-dried onion in the pantry. We're gonna have the garlic, the ginger, the stock, and some kombu. Oh, and lemongrass. I actually have some lemongrass from our garden last year. I'm gonna throw some of these lemongrass stalks in as well, just for flavor. They won't be eaten. Yep, and here are the chopped scallions, or shallots, chopped shallots, freeze-dried shallots. I'm gonna add them to my miso soup. This is where I'm going to saute my carrot and onions. So I've got the garlic and the ginger, a little bit of bacon grease. So once the rice is cooked, we'll kind of throw it together with the sauteed vegetables. I'm gonna scramble some eggs to put some scrambled eggs. We're gonna cook the pork after these vegetables are sauteed. And then you kind of just put it all together. I don't have a big wok. If you had a wok, you could get it all together and fry it up like traditional fried rice. Mine's just going to be kind of mixed up together. If I can fry any of it in the saucepan or in this cast iron skillet before we eat, then I will. But it's going to mostly be cooked each individual portion and then mixed together. So I just did carrots, onions, garlic, and ginger. You could absolutely add corn, mushrooms would be good. I didn't add the corn because I have freeze-dried corn and I just didn't want to deal with that at the moment. And mushrooms, my kids have been mushroomed out, especially from the beef with barley we had the other night. So we're not gonna do mushrooms tonight, but you could certainly, oh, and peas would be good. We just don't have peas. You could certainly experiment with the different vegetables in your fried rice. So the meat is done, the veggies are done, the rice is cooking. I'll just have to fry some, make some scrambled eggs before we eat. And the miso soup is kind of just on a very low simmer, bringing everything together. I'm not putting the kombu seaweed in until kind of right before we eat. So everything is somewhat put together. We'll mix everything right before it's time. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit!
We are back to make dinner. It is Thursday, January 9th, and got my water boiling. I am going to make manicotti and stuffed shells. And I'm pretty sure I have enough to make 2 dinners with this. So if at all possible, I'm gonna freeze one. So double duty today, using what we've got. I've got leftover sweet potatoes from our meatloaf a couple of nights ago. I've got 2 quarts of marinara sauce, like roasted garlic marinara from our pantry that I've canned. And I got a bag of spinach out of the freezer that I've already thawed and kind of pressed that water out. And I made ricotta this morning. I have a whole video on how to make ricotta cheese. I'll be sure to link that above so you can watch it. I think ricotta is probably the easiest cheese to make. A lot of people start with mozzarella, but to me, mozzarella is harder. So that is in the fridge already. So we're basically gonna stuff our manicotti and stuff our shells with ricotta, sweet potato, and spinach. So here is the spinach already thawed and strained. Our sweet potato. And our gorgeous ricotta. I don't know that I'm gonna put all of this ricotta in, because it's just so delicious the way it is. It's like something I could kind of put on a plate with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of herbs, maybe some of the sun-dried tomatoes that we did back in August. We'll see. I'm gonna start with half and go from there. I'm trying to keep an eye on the manicotti shells. That's what I'm boiling first. Once I feel that they are just perfectly al dente, because you don't want to overcook them, I will take them out and then we're going to mix this all together. They're what I'm going to start to kind of fill first, and I'll get the shells boiling. I think I'm going to do my shells in a large 9x13 and the manicotti in an 8x8, because just the nature of the boxes, I have more shells than I do manicotti. Okay, so I'm going to put half of our ricotta in. And if I need more, I'll do more, but start with that. Garlic powder. Onion powder. Oregano. Redmond real salt. And one of my favorite things to add when I'm using ricotta is freshly grated nutmeg. I learned this trick from my mom. So you buy the nutmeg in the pods and use a microplane grater. I'm gonna add 1 egg, 1 large egg. And a little bit of freshly grated cheese. I think this might be, I actually don't know. It could be cheddar, I really don't know, but it's homemade cheese. It's gonna be delicious. I'm gonna start with putting some of my passata just down on the bottom of each of the pans. I found a little spoon. So all the pasta is cooked. I just took the shells out, and now it's just about filling, which, if you take a deep breath, it can actually just be very therapeutic and relaxing in the quiet. Okay, manicotti's done. I actually did go ahead and put it in the 9x13. I didn't really want to stack them. I don't think manicotti is meant to be stacked. So in this pan it goes. I'm just gonna set this aside and we're gonna now fill the shells. I don't have a whole lot of filling left. So I actually think I am gonna have to add the rest of this ricotta. I'm just gonna add it just the way it is, not add any more seasoning. Goodness, Marley, come on. And mix this in. Now you might hear Marley now barking incessantly. I'm sorry if you do. He hasn't started yet, but it's only a matter of time. He likes to bark at every living and non-living thing he sees to assert his own domain. Shells, in my opinion, are a little bit easier to fill. So inevitably this always happens when I make this, which is maybe once a year. Lots of shells left over and no stuffing left. And I remember that my mom used to have this problem too. And so I'm gonna do what she did. So an ode to my mama. I'm just gonna stuff these empty shells in here because it's no different than just pasta and sauce. All right, so we've got our 2 meals done. This is awesome. I'm probably gonna freeze the manicotti and we'll do the stuffed shells tonight. So I'm just gonna use the rest of my passata. And cover. And to open, this is our last jar of the roasted garlic marinara. This is with garlic from our garden and herbs from our garden and the tomatoes that we grew last year. But I have so many tomatoes in the freezer, 12 gallons worth, that this is what I'm probably gonna make with those, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and get them out of the freezer. You can see it's like a little bit thicker. The passata is just like a kind of a thin tomato sauce, whereas the roasted garlic marinara is like a traditional marinara. All right, so the manicotti, I am just gonna cover with foil and then put a lid on and put it in the freezer. And the stuffed shells for tonight, I'm gonna top with the rest of this cheese and then cover with foil. I'm gonna put it in the oven, but I'm not actually cooking it yet. I'll probably cook it in about an hour. But I'm gonna get it in the oven so it's ready. For the manicotti, I will do the same thing, right? I'll put some cheese on it. I just would rather do that when I'm actually cooking it. Yeah, this is yours. I'm gonna start with that. You want one more? Okay.
Yes. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
Yum, yum.
Today is Friday, January 10th, and we are gonna have a very simple and easy but delicious dinner. And we have a big storm that is supposed to be arriving tonight. And so we've been kind of preparing, or I say we, me, I've been preparing the house, kind of vacuuming, making sure the dishes are clean, making sure our laundry is done. Because in these types of storms, we don't really necessarily get a lot of snow that snows us in. It's more ice, and then things shut down, the roads get bad, and we lose power. That's the thing that kind of happens to us mostly in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. So I'm just trying to prep to make sure in case we lose power, we're ready. So I hard boiled some eggs today, about a dozen eggs. So should need be, we've got some good protein for breakfast. We have all kinds of canned soups, and we have freeze-dried foods, right? So I'm not really worried about actual meals, but just kind of the little things to get by in the morning until the power comes back on. Usually when it's gone, it comes back within a day, maybe two. There was one time when I was in my 20s, and this was a while ago. I actually lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was in an apartment, and I was without power. It was a really big storm. We were without power. Well, I was alone. It was me and my cat. We were without power for 8 days. That was really hard, but it's one of those things that you never forget. So I'm just trying to make sure, you know, we've got our batteries, we've got our candles, we've got everything ready. So we're gonna have a really comforting but easy dinner tonight. Breakfast, I'm gonna make some chocolate chip banana pancakes. I've already got my batter going, like a sourdough pancake batter going. And I've got eggs, and I might cook some bacon up. We're just gonna make it really yummy, comforting, and easy. So the pancake recipe is a Farmhouse on Boone recipe, and it is called sourdough buttermilk pancakes. Because I had buttermilk as well, I wanted to use that up. So it was 1/4 cup sourdough starter, 1.5 cups buttermilk, and 1 3/4 cup unbleached all-purpose flour. I don't actually have all-purpose flour. That is one of the things I'm gonna get in my next Azure order. But I have all-purpose einkorn. And einkorn, you need a little less einkorn compared to all-purpose when it comes to the flour liquid ratio. So I kept the liquids the same, right? The sourdough starter the same and the 1.5 cups buttermilk, but I did 2 cups of the all-purpose einkorn. You just need either a little bit less liquid or a little bit more flour, because the einkorn, I don't know, it just gets really kind of messy, wet, and so you have to overcompensate for that. All right, so now I'm gonna add 2 large eggs, a 1/4 cup of butter melted, 2 tablespoons honey, salt, and baking soda, and I'm gonna use 2 of my water glassed eggs. Okay, I added a little bit of cinnamon just because I like to add a little bit of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon Redmond real salt, 1 teaspoon baking powder, no, baking soda, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 2 tablespoons honey. I already did it, but thank you. Yeah, I did it today. 2 eggs. And 1/4 cup melted butter. That looks really good and ready. I'm gonna heat my cast iron skillet and cut the bananas. So hold on, here's some shrimp. Bon appetit.
Bon
Bon appetit.
appetit.